We've got Mr. Girish Agrawal. He's promoter director at the Dainik Bhaskar newspaper group, now joining us on ET Now. Thank you. Good to have you on board, Mr. Agarwal. Let's begin by talking about your overall revenue growth, because that has seen a pretty healthy uptake of about 16% on year. I'm just wondering what really led to this in terms of the factors and even your segments that drove this growth.
So luckily, this year, I think all the segments, fired up. It's right from automobile, which went up to almost 30%, real estate, education, healthcare. But on top of it, we have to remember one thing: this was the election year. So the government spending on the newspaper advertising was on high. And apart from that, since government gave a lot of freebies out to the people, so everybody had a lot of disposable income, which went out in the market. And because of that, the private sector advertising also went up.
Morning, Mr. Agrawal. Nikunj also joining in. Always a pleasure to interact with you. Our coffee is overdue, but we shall book it after the interview in terms of taking some appointment from you. But focusing on the numbers, Mr. Agrawal, there is a view, and again with a disclosure here for the benefit of our viewers, that the channel you're watching is also owned by BCCL, which is a media company. We tend to see in media company that ahead of the election cycle, there is always the deep swell, and which then normalizes. What will happen to your Q4 versus Q1 versus Q1 versus Q2 numbers when the election spending from the government it normalizes?
So two things. If you look at this year, our growth is almost 18% on the ad revenue. Now that 18%, I would say almost 8% out of that would be straight away can be attributed to the government spend, election advertising, general advertising, and all that. So maybe next year that may go away. So next year we are hopeful and targeting for a 10% growth.
One of the most underestimated facts about DB Corp is that how you've incubated the digital business. Can you walk our viewers through what is happening there?
So digital, we have got some 15 million active users with us. Those who you give some 15 minutes to us, and the content is engaging. Post-COVID, a lot of other competitors saw a dip, but we've been able to maintain the number. And I think things are doing pretty good. Our editorial team is really working very, very hard to make sure that the readers don't only continue to engage, but increase their time with us.
Margins for, A, there is an operating leverage benefit which has kicked in. B, there's a raw material advantage, and then there's election bump up. So it's like what they say in Hindi, Sone pe Suhaga. The quarter gone by was like everything was in your favor. And margins have gone up from 14% to about 28%.
Right.
Where will they sustain in the long term? Assuming that some of the triggers are variable.
As you mentioned, Sone pe Suhaga, I'm hoping the government coming in next year will again do something bumper to make sure that the India has a huge potential ahead for us, and they encash on that. So if that happens, we'll have again Sone pe Suhaga.
On basis, do you think 23-24% kind of EBITDA margins, can you sustain them?
We are looking at higher numbers.
Higher numbers?
Yes.
And what are those higher numbers? You've got me curious.
We don't give future guidance, but as a company, we all are working towards that, because in a good time, we almost had 33% margin with us. So we're going to work on that only.
So this perception which everyone has that, okay, print is important and crucial, but the advertiser has moved on. I think your numbers and your confidence in a sense are dismissing that very popular opinion. Can I say that?
Absolutely. In fact, through your channel, I would like to urge to people that please don't make wrong perceptions. Don't live in some kind of myth that print is dying or print is not growing or advertising moving away. Look at my number, and not only mine, I'm sure there are other newspaper organizations also, even your Times of India group. I'm sure you all are seeing a growth. So print is here to stay. For one important reason you have to understand, when we talk about social media, when we talk about digital or television and all that, all these channels are important, mediums are important, but print in terms of credibility is the only medium which has stayed strong on that. And that too, when a reader is reading a newspaper, you get the undivided attention. Sorry to say, but when I'm watching your TV, I'm also looking at my phone. But when I'm reading a newspaper, I'm not even listening to my wife. So I think that kind of right of way, that kind of attention, that kind of involvement is very hard to get in any other medium.
I guess your wife is mighty pleased that you're actually soaking in some information and reading the newspaper. I'm the same, I have to admit, when it comes to actual print. But I know you touched upon digital very briefly. I know you spoke about how that's not your core, but I want to discuss it a little bit more because you are looking at expanding there as well. How much is it for your total revenue in terms of the pie? You're expanding in UP as well. And what are the further expansion plans, or what's the game plan for digital?
See, this is where I kind of disagree with your approach. Is what 95% of my revenue is right now print. And what you are looking for is that 5% to dissect more in that. Rather than you should be asking me more questions on that 95%, that which category, how's the newsprint prices, how's the profitability. Because the 700 crore profit, which we have got the highest ever in the history of the company, is largely because of print. And going forward also, for many years, I think the print is going to continue to reign as such in that. But anyway, since you asked that question, I will answer you. On digital, we are not monetizing in a big way right now. Our entire focus is to get the consumer, the reader, more involved reader. Right now, we have 15 million with us. Number is, we want to go much, much higher. So idea is to see how we are able to get more people reading us on a daily basis. And then at some point of time, we may look at monetizing the whole opportunity.
You know, I know it is a bulk part of your business, so let me ask you more about that then, where the actual moolah is coming from, if you will. What is the outlook when it comes to circulation? Are there any strategies in place in terms of growing your circulation growth, newsprint prices? Where are they headed?
So luckily, this year, newsprint prices has gone down from 60,000 of the peak to almost 49,000. And we believe this may further go down by 3-4% in the next quarter. Now, in this phase, which means the newspaper as an industry, what we were facing the problem in earlier 2-3 years about the newsprint, and we all were stuck with the circulation that we don't want to grow circulation because it's very expensive. As you know, copies are subsidized. So this year, not only Bhaskar Group, I'm told every possible newspaper is trying to increase the circulation this year because the newsprint is on our side.
I'm looking at the breakup, sir, and these are numbers which I'm sure shareholders will be very excited about. The stock is done exceedingly well. When I speak to some of your large investors, I mean, they really love the way this business has been done. My question is that what is the cyclicality in the business apart from the election revenue, which you think is difficult to fathom right now? For example, automobile, it's a deeply cyclical industry, but your automobile revenue for the quarter gone by was up 30%. Isn't that risk that there is a lot of uptick which is coming from cyclical businesses?
No. So what is going to happen if you see automobile, I have not yet reached the pre-pandemic level. So the number which was much higher because of pandemic, I came down. And now I think this number has to go up furthermore. So 30% growth in the quarter. Am I happy? I'm not even happy. Why? Because I think this should have been almost double. So going forward, automobile will fire furthermore. Real estate has to grow more. Education has to grow more. Jewelry. Now look at the jewelry market. Since look at the cost of the gold and silver. So that very much indicates that the jewelry market is further sorted to be growing at a much higher pace. So I think all these categories are going to fire for us. Having said that, I think it all depends on overall the GDP of the country. Now, if for God some reason that election goes haywire, the result comes out not as expected and all that, and something goes wrong, I think then we are part of the ecosystem.
Now, with this kind of profit growth, you would be generating a lot of cash. This business does not require a lot of capex and a strong cash generation. So what are shareholders in for? Higher dividend, buybacks?
So as on 31st March this year, we had a cash balance of almost 1,000 crore. And this year, company gave a dividend of 13 rupees, which is around 233 crores. With that also, our bank balance will almost stay there in the second quarter. So I think company board will decide that what we need to do with this money, pay back the more dividend or do a buyback or whatever. I think the board will decide on that.
All right. Good to have you as always. Thank you so much, Mr. Agarwal, for joining in and sharing with us the vision for DB Corp as well as a growth outlook, a pretty confident management there as well. All right.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.